One time I went to his room and he had someone else in his room and he told me to leave. And I went back to my room and I just cried like the whole night.
Surviving a breakup is difficult because your imagined future disappears and you find yourself suddenly on a precipice. All of the dreams, all of the fantasies that you had with the other person now have to be undone, and you have to recognize that that reality that you constructed together will not be lived. How to survive a breakup. 1. Accept that the breakup is the right thing and that it's happened. 2. Accept that you can control nobody except yourself. 3. Realize that you cannot invest your well-being in the perception of another person. 4. Learn to let go and move on. 5. Trust that the future is going to be okay for you. That not only are you going to find someone more appropriate, because that in a sense is a repetition of the pattern that you're trying to break, but that you will find in this world everything you need if you are willing to let go of other people's approval as the primary source for your spiritual nutrition, and instead find a connection to something beyond that. Usually when you have a codependent to a person in a relationship, it's because you've nominated them or cast them in a role that they are not able to fulfill, a role that traditionally would have been fulfilled by a kind of icon. In a sense, romance is the imbuement or endowment of the other. You relinquish the person as an ideal, you become open to better possibilities, and primarily you let go of the idea that you know what's best for you. You open yourself up to new advice, and you recognize that you are worthy of real love. You set up your mental habits and patterns for maximum self-persecution, and this is a habit that has to go, otherwise you will repeat the same thing in every relationship that you are in. Use it as an opportunity to change, and you are worthy of love.
You're in a long-term intimate relationship and you get betrayed. What is it that you see when you see your partner at the moment you know of the betrayal? Well, you see the pre-cosmogonic chaos. And here's why. Well, it rattles your unconscious up because you don't know anything anymore. You don't know what the past was, right? You don't know what it was. And it's supposed to be real, and all of a sudden you don't know what it was. And so you come up with wild ideas about what it might have been and what it represented, and then you don't know what the future is going to be anymore. So then your fantasy fills that space, and you don't know who the hell you're looking at, that's for sure, and you don't know much about human beings, and you certainly don't know anything about yourself. And so all of a sudden, not only is everything in chaos inside your mind, but everything is in chaos in your world. And it actually is, and there's no telling the difference between those two things. You know, and so then you're just scattered. And so then you go talk to a therapist for like 2 years, and you think, well, what happened? What was the reality? And the reality is, who knows what the reality was like, but as far as you're concerned, the reality is, I better represent this properly in my head. I better figure out who I was, who that person was, what we did together, and what it meant, because I do not want this to happen again. And so you're healed when you get to the point where you've grasped the bloody moral of the story. What went wrong? And how can I not have that happen again? Because that's the purpose of learning, right? That's the purpose of memory. It's to prepare you for the future. And so you have to cull out of that massive chaos a functional representation that increases your wisdom so that you're not this naive target the next time you enter into a relationship. So at least you can have another relationship without being so traumatized that you're done. And you know, it can take people years to talk that through, because this landscape of potential opens up when they're betrayed. It's like anything could have been the truth. To sort through that, you have to wander through all that mess, and it's really painful and emotional as well. You have to sort through all that mess, come out with the new you, right? The renewed you.
Move on. Straight up. Forget them. They are lying and they are untrustworthy. So move on. That person is not who you thought they were. They are not who you thought they were. The idea this person was a trustworthy, faithful companion is not true. It is not true. That person does not exist. They didn't exist and they don't exist. It was in your head. It was in your head that this person was trustworthy and they were everything you wanted them to be and they were a faithful companion. That is a lie. They are not that person. They've proved it by their actions. So move on, and at the risk of sounding callous, get over it. Don't dwell on that. Deal with what it is right now, what that person is. Deal with reality, accept reality, and be thankful that you were able to learn before you invested more into this person, and you know it now instead of later. And you know what else is going to make it a lot easier to get over these situations? Is recognize that there's plenty of people out there in the world that are trustworthy and that are faithful, good people. They're out there. Go find one of them. Don't think that that person that you had was the only one in the world. They're not. Sometimes people have a hard time making that trust because they're so caught up. They don't want to meet someone else right away. That's fine. Start with yourself, right? Rely on yourself. Trust yourself. When someone breaks our trust, we question ourselves too. Like, we think my judgment's bad. I'm not a good judge of human character because I totally put my faith in this person and look what they did to me. So now we don't trust her. So you got to build that trust up. You got to build that trust up back again with yourself. Be alone. It's okay to be alone. Some people get freaked out when they're alone. It's okay to be alone. It's okay. It's okay to be alone. There's no big deal. Enjoy it. Do something productive and build that trust up in yourself. That's why I said you got to build a relationship with yourself. You got to learn to trust yourself. And guys or girls get so distraught over this fantasy that doesn't exist. And what's really jacked up is if they could just move on, they'd find a reality that was actually congruent with what their desires are. It's out there. You see people all over the world. There's someone out there, but you get caught up in this mental trap and obsessing over a fantasy. Don't obsess over the fantasy. You can get over it, and there's plenty of other human beings out there that are awesome. So go find one of them. Move on.